Is Moash a better person than Dalinar? Can he be redeemed? And if not, when did he lose the ability to be redeemed? This video is going to be one of my panels from Dragonsteel Nexus 2025, Ethics, Morality, and Moash. Hello world lovers, welcome to Cosmere Horizons, and if you weren't able to make it to Dragonsteel Nexus 2025 and felt like you missed out on some of the panels, this video is just for you. This was my personal favorite panel from the entire convention, minus Brandon's spoiler Q&A, because that was awesome. If you could not only like, but hype this video so that as many people as possible could see it, that would be awesome. This is one of 3 panels I had at Dragonsteel Nexus. The other 2 are going to be exclusive videos for my patrons on my Patreon. So if you want to hop over to the Patreon, get exclusive content, early videos, and a private Discord server, I'd love to have you. It's a ton of fun. All right, with that being said, let's hop right into it.
Hello? Oh, would you look at that?
It's exactly 2:30. Hi, everybody.
Somebody's excited.
You guys chose this over the opening ceremony, which shows you either love Moash or you really hate Moash. And we're going to find out. All right, we're going to do some brief introductions of who we are up here, then we'll get started. So thanks all for being here, and let's dive in. So I'm Aris Rotella. I'm an attorney in my real life. I practice corporate civil litigation law. Very boring, but I'm a trial lawyer. So I'm used to defending arguments that I don't believe in. Don't tell my clients. But that led me to defending Moash more than once last year at Dragonsteel, which led to the creation of this panel, the idea of who Moash is and how he became who he is. Giant Magic the Gathering fan as well, loves Sanderson's work and the sort of complexity he brings into his characters. And now we'll introduce the rest of the panel, starting with Ben.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben. I am the co-founder of 3030, the writing challenge that is taking over for NaNoWriMo that exploded last year. I'm also a former literary agent. I've worked in the publishing industry for the last about 14 years, and I'm a huge Sanderson fan.
And now we have Dylan.
Hi, my name is Dylan. I have a YouTube channel called Cosmere Horizons where I talk anything and everything Cosmere, usually a bunch of rankings, reviews, theories, sometimes heated debates, like Moash. Yeah, Dalinar Kholin wannabe. I just really like Dalinar, guys. He's really cool. Thank you. Other people had serious things on their slides, so I put down my job. I'm a wedding videographer, so if any of you guys are getting married and want a videographer, reach out to me. And then I'm a diehard Yuumi fan. Yuumi is my 3rd favorite, potentially 2nd favorite story in the Cosmere. So yeah, I'm a big Yuumi and the Nightmare Painter fan, and that's me.
All right, and now Steve. Steve.
Both, either. Yeah. My name is Steve or Steven, depending on the context of when you're talking to me, I guess. I am not a wedding photographer, but I have performed some weddings, so maybe we should team up and do some like Cosmere.
That would be awesome.
Let's make it happen. I am a content creator. I've been making videos about Brandon Sanderson since 2018. I was the first Cosmere-focused YouTube channel that I was aware of, so I've been around for a minute. In my real life, I also am a voice actor and narrator. I recorded the licensed version of Long Chills and Case Dough, so if you'd like to check that out, that is on my channel, officially licensed by Dragonsteel. And I am a sign language interpreter. That's how I make most of my money, because voice acting and content creation doesn't make you money. So I can flap my hands around and people will understand me. It's a good time. Oh, right. Also I have a podcast coming up next year. Everyone should go to that website, thenextideal.com, and sign up to be notified about my podcast, because it's cool. It's going to be fun. Come talk to me about it at my booth.
All right. Well, now we're here to talk about a kinslayer, a warmonger, an all-around bad person. But that's enough about Dalinar Kholin before we turn things around. But really, let's talk about Moash.
I can't say without problems. Oh, I can say, well, I would say f*** Moash.
I think Moash was valid. F Moash. But I feel like that you can only have that much hatred for somebody because of how much you liked them to begin with.
He can suck it. He's awful. Redemption arc is dead. The next redemption arc's dead. There's nothing left.
I think that he is
on a redemption arc that no one wants to see. No one wants him to be redeemed, but I think he's headed that way. No spoilers, but he has half a series left. What development can we do from here? He becomes worse? He can't. He's already the worst.
He's designed not to be ever redeemed.
Oh, anytime I give someone a copy of The Way of Kings and they start reading, I'm sure to tell them how much I enjoy reading about Moash, how much I like him as a character, and it is so fun to watch that journey unfold for first-time readers.
Moash doesn't need a redemption arc. Just straight up.
All right, so our goal was to make this kind of interactive, like those interviews. So there's going to be a few points throughout this where we're going to ask for some feedback, either through waving hands or shouting something. So this is one of those moments. Dylan?
Yeah. So we want to take a survey, just like everyone in the room, of when did you start hating Moash, right? And there'll be an option for you don't. I better. Anyway. So we're going to just start off with who, by the end of The Way of Kings, hated Moash?
Already? Wow.
Okay. I see a really proud hand back there. Okay, by the end of Words of Radiance, when did you start hating Moash?
Yeah, see.
Okay, we got a little more. Okay, by the end of Oathbringer, where did you start hating Moash? I'll put my hand up there with that one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Rhythm of War. Oh, okay. If you, yeah. And who was really on Moash's side until Wind and Truth? I'm wondering.
There's a guy dressed like Moash and he raised his hand.
Yeah, there's several different Moashes in this room here.
Who's still like, he's all right. Put your hand up.
Whoa! Yo!
Okay.
This is going to be good.
This is going to be fun. I see you, Seth.
All right, now this is our obligatory spoiler warning, all right? I'm sure many of you wouldn't be here but for reading the books, but it's an amazing journey, so don't ruin it for yourself. We do have some spoilers coming, and also minor spoilers for Star Wars, but you'll see when that comes.
I'm only halfway through Way of Kings. Can we...
He's like, who's Moash again?
Yeah, I love that guy. He's Kaladin's best friend, yes.
All right, so we're going to first define Moash here. I saw this hilarious shirt online. I'm not sure whose it is, so credit to whoever made this. But Moash is a noun, one who betrays another's trust or is false to an obligation or duty, one who commits treason, common usage, leave Moash. All right, now a little bit of an orientation here. This is called Ethics, Morality, and Moash. So what we're looking at is a conversation of what makes a good person, how does one become a good person? Is it simply the scales of justice? By the time you kick the bucket, do you have to do more good than bad? Is that what makes you a good person? Is it one big courageous act or something like that? And are some acts simply unforgivable? No matter how good you do in the latter parts of your life, did you do something so bad that you are just cooked? It's over. So what redeems a person? The Darth Vader path, which is where you have him be a really terrible genocidal maniac for most of his important life, but then he does something really good at the end, one big action that brings balance and redeemed him in so many people's minds. Or the Dalinar path. The beginning joke was real. Dalinar, he was a war criminal. He was a child of Odium. He's somebody who was in the passions of bloodlust like Odium wanted him to be. He committed terrible acts that led to the death of his wife. And yet, he's probably one of the strongest forces for, quote, good in the Cosmere now. He's grown into a life of service and lives a life of justice. So how does that match within the timeline of deeds? So I'm just going to ask you guys, which one do you prefer? Do you think the Darth Vader path has any sort of validity? We'll just go down the line from Steve on down for this one. But is the Darth Vader path real, or does it have to be more like Dalinar to correct your wrongs? What's your position on these kinds of things?
I'm personally more of a fan of the Dalinar path. I mean, if we're talking about redemption as a character concept, being able to prove that through repeated acts is a lot more trustworthy in my mind than just doing one big thing and then saying you're redeemed. Like, that's the really impressive part of Dalinar's character, is that he has committed these atrocities, but over and over again accepts responsibility for those and works to consciously change his character.
I like the accepts responsibility part. That was a good piece.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Steve here and say the Dalinar path, as we all are aware, the ancient oaths have been spoken again. strength before weakness, life before death, and most importantly, journey before destination. And I think that is especially when we're talking about fictional characters, when we're reading somebody that is not real, when we're reading somebody that an author has created, what connects us most with that character is watching them progress through stages of their lives. And this is two sides of maybe not even the same coin with Darth Vader and Dalinar here, but through the entire journey of Darth Vader, we see him as this oligarchical figure who has immense power over pretty much every single person in the room and does one single good thing in the entire, at least original trilogy. But then with Dalinar, we really do see his path from who he is in Way of Kings, his backstory, all the way through every atrocious thing that he did throughout his entire life, and the redemption path that he took. And I feel like that is the most, not necessarily worthy path, but something that we as readers find more connective with characters that we read.
Yeah. Dylan?
Yeah, I think, really, if you boil down to it, Dalinar's path, he got redeemed. Darth Vader got redeemed at the last 30 seconds of his life, which is that's great, that's cool. You know what's cooler? Living a little bit longer than that to carry out those what redeemed you. So Dalinar path is obviously the way to go, and it's more of a discussion of, is the Darth Vader path even really redemption? If you redeem yourself and die 30 seconds later, it could just be a phase, guys. It could just you can be I'm gonna be a better person. You can just say that and then die. Are you a better person?
Well, I think that's the key point, is the action of Darth Vader killing the Emperor had such giant ripple effects for the entire galaxy, right? So it helped so many people on such a large scale that if we buy into the scales of justice, which is my next question, if you buy into the scales of justice, he clearly outweighed the bad deeds because he has ended that tyrannical regime, and depending on your side on that, but this is not a Star Wars panel. But the point is, I think that because the action was so large, it satisfies the scales of justice test. So perhaps as another foundational question, do you guys buy into that? We'll go this way now. Dylan, do you think the scales of justice is a valid way to determine if somebody is actually lived a good life? Or do you think it really takes more of a life of service and almost a personality of service or of good deeds that makes you, quote, good at the end of the day?
I think at the end of the day, if you're looking at, I think it's more of the life you live and the actions you take throughout your life, right? You can have the virtues, you can swear the ideals, but you're only able to swear the ideals if you actually carry out that virtue. And we see that multiple times of Venli trying to swear an ideal and she's not able to swear the ideal because she hasn't fulfilled that. And I think that applies very much to this it's very much what you do, not I'm a good person now.
Right. And what do you think, Ben?
I think this is a lot more complex than just a simple good or bad answer. All of us are human. All of us have good and bad within us. We all make good and bad choices. In terms of a scale, I think we are all somewhere near the middle in terms of who we are as people. And when we're talking about characters like this, I feel like every single person in this room feels like they do good. Every single person feels like they are the hero of their own story. Every single person feels like even if what they are doing is bad, it is actually going to be good for them or the world around them or their communities or their lives. And this is a pretty complex conversation because very likely Darth Vader thought that he was doing the right thing. Very likely Dalinar thought he was doing the right thing, even when he was committing atrocious acts. So how do we define goodness and badness in terms of a moral scale when we're talking about individual characters and individual acts on a micro scale? So I think it's a little bit more complex.
I completely agree, and I think Moash is going to bring that out. We're just establishing terms, getting a feel for what people think. Awesome. Steve, what do you think? And it might be a false dichotomy, I admit that, but...
I've struggled with this specific concept for years. Just the thought that there is a scale. Can the good I do outweigh the bad that I have done and will do? Because as Ben said, we're all human, we all make mistakes. And I personally have struggled with the concept that once I have done a bad thing, I can't make that not have been done anymore. And so is the scale even relevant? Because there's always going to be negative on the side of that scale. And balancing that is incredibly difficult for my brain to wrap itself around, because there's always going to be negative. Like, I always will be a person who has done bad things to people before. Even though I'm like trying and consciously wanting to change and be a better person, I always will have done those terrible things. So it's kind of irrelevant. Like, the scale of justice will always be outweighed by bad if you're a pessimist like I'm trying to not be.
Do you mean that on a panel for Dragonsteel Nexus 2025 in an hour and 15 minutes, we're not going to solve the age-old question of what makes a moral person? That's shocking to me.
We're doing it right here, right now,
right
guys.
now.
We are settling.
We're going to settle it. That reminds me, just to add a little philosophy in there, Aristotle says that if it's not a constant action, it's like a conveyor belt moving backwards. You must always be moving forwards. Otherwise, staying still, being neutral is not good enough. You slide back. So this brings the question of a timeline of deeds. So much of this is locked in a context of somebody's life on a scale of the full time they've had to be an active participant in their lives. So if you look at Dalinar, if Dalinar died shortly after they razed the city with fire that his wife was inside of, he would be remembered as probably one of the most tyrannical, horrible people in the Cosmere through his behaviors, through his deeds. Or say he died on the night that Gavilar was killed. There's many ways where he would be remembered as a drunkard or what have you. But he had the privilege of time. He had the time to be able to rebuild a life, to be able to right some of those wrongs, which I think we have to acknowledge as a privilege, which, if you think about it, if someone gets cut off, like I said, in the peak of their badness, where do they go from there? It reminds me of, say, the life of the saints. We're going to talk briefly about that as well. Like Paul and Saul, you often get name changes, and you have pretty bad folks turning it around and doing a lot of good, and then they get venerated and anointed as saints. And it's a weird sort of paradigm that we as people deal with. So, when looking at a timeline of deeds, we have to talk about the many, many, many wrongs that Moash has wrought upon our Cosmere. And I believe that's you?
Can be.
Who was it? What?
Steve?
I think
Let's just go through it.
Yeah.
Here, we'll each take one.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
So he betrays his oath, and to protect the king with graves. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's not a good thing.
He's already an oathbreaker right off the bat. And then we have the betrayal of Kaladin with direct violence, where he actually fights him, and before understanding, Kaladin could have lost his arm in that battle. There could have been real consequences, but for investiture. So those are some big acts.
And then we obviously have the murder of King Elokar.
Can you see?
No. And then other stuff that is at an awkward angle.
I'm so sorry about that.
No,
he psychologically
I was trying to bring
abuses
up
Kaladin. That's a constant theme, especially in the fourth book. I don't know, but he constantly abuses Kaladin, and the fifth book as well.
Yeah.
He kills Teft, which just, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big
None
one.
of that. None of that.
Such a good destiny, though. I die knowing I'm loved. Like, come on, guys, that's such a good line. I love that.
And then,
yes, he tries to make Kaladin unalive himself, as is shown here.
And then, of course, he supports the fused hunting of Radiant. So he's actively working against the Radiant Order, which, again, there's complexity in this whole conversation that Sanderson does a great job grappling with in 2.5 million words or whatever it is for the first cycle of Stormlight. But he deals with the fact that, the singers were there first, that the Rosharans or the Radiants, so be it, were sort of invaders in a way. So they're a very complex, morally gray picture. But Moash doesn't have to be morally gray. He can just suck. Right? That can be a thing.
Stop anytime he wants.
Right. So we sort of did this already, but what do you think is the biggest point of no return for Moash and his actions now specifically? Ben, do you want to take this one?
Let's focus on 2 points. I think there are 2 schools of thought here, at least from what we were talking about beforehand. Who thinks that his point of no return is after he kills King Elokar?
Interesting.
Okay, and who thinks that is after he kills Teft?
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh. We need to explore that a little bit.
I think honestly, this is a really interesting conversation.
I was more upset about that.
Yes, he does kill a Spren when he kills Teft too. That is part of the conversation, and that is
So let's start with Elhokar then, right? Let's start with the death of Elhokar and the fact that he's swearing the oaths in real time, about to become a Radiant. His character arc is finally going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just stopped. So now, do you think that was his point of no return, or are you very much on?
I think it was stupid, and it made me upset, because here's the thing. I think Elhokar's death is one of the greatest deaths in any fantasy I've ever read. Like, it's one of the few deaths. Like, when Teft dies, don't get me wrong, it's a bit of a bummer. But when Teft dies, like, you're like, that sucks, and you're sad, and you feel awful for Kaladin, right? You feel awful that Teft has been there since day one, right? He's like Kaladin's rock. Well, rock is never mind. But you look at Elhokar, and you don't like Elhokar, and you see him come to Kaladin in the pouring rain begging, like, why do people follow you? Why don't they follow me? And you're watching this arc, and you're finally rooting for him, and he's seeing these shadows, he's seeing the cryptics, he's fulfilling his lies he's realizing his lies of he thinks he's a better king than he is, and he's finally admitting that. And it's a death that you really feel bad for Elhokar. Like, you feel bad for Dalinar, you feel bad for Adolin, Kaladin, whatever, but you primarily about that death, you feel bad for Elhokar. Now, granted, that has nothing to do with Moash. Like, Moash, I guess, was justified in killing him, but because he just snatches such a beautiful arc away, that's why Moash loses me there.
I agree with that. It is really the potential we could have had. There's a raised hand, but we're gonna have a Q&A. What's up? Is there something going wrong?
Yeah. Well,
what a good angle.
There's implications to that later, yeah.
I wonder what they could be.
Gav has no emotional trauma at all. Okay, guys.
Perfectly healthy young man.
So for those of you who couldn't hear that, we had an audience member to the right, a wonderful citizen, saying that he feels bad for Gav, the son, who was abandoned anyway, never got that time with his absentee father. So yeah, that's super important and a good impact. But I agree, I think it's being robbed of that beautiful story arc, right? If you've listened to Brandon Sanderson's lectures on writing, he often talks about payoff and promises and these kinds of things. And he weaponized that against us. Boy, did he. I mean, we had so much promise with Elhokar finally maybe living up to what at least the appearance of Gavilar was. We're learning more and more about Gavilar, but there was a real appearance of a king there. He at least looked and behaved like a king. So it's a shame to lose that character arc. I agree. Ben, what do you think?
I agree with a lot of what is said, but I would also counterpoint that with when Teft does die, we feel horrible for Teft. Teft is also on his own redemptive journey. Elhokar's on a redemptive journey. I mean, most of Brandon's characters are multi-layered and both, like we've talked about, good and bad in certain ways. And Teft is, I should say this, I mean, yeah, sure, Teft is more relatable. From a human perspective, from a regular Dark Eyes perspective, like most of us are. I doubt any royalty are in the room with us. Teft is a more relatable character for most of us. Yes, Elhokar does have that redemptive arc that he's on, but Sanderson likes to put those in with most of his characters. They're all trying to outrun the sins of their past in some way, to make them better or to forget them. And with Teft, he's not just a rock for Kaladin. He is the backbone of Bridge 4, as much as Kaladin is the heart. And when that is taken from us as vicarious livers of Bridge 4, that is so gutting to me. And yes, I can see Elhokar as a great character with a great character arc with a potential for redemption. But because of who he is, I don't connect with him as much because I'm not royalty, because I'm not rich, because I'm not privileged the way he is. And when I see Teft trying to live up to the potential that he has as a soldier, as a human, as a friend, and that is taken from him before he can fulfill his arc, that to me is worth way more than the potential to be a good king. Anybody has the ability to be a good king if they're in the position to do so. But everyone has the ability to be a good person and a good friend and a good backbone for Bridge 4 if they have the opportunity to do so.
Well said. Steve?
Well, Ben, I hate to completely disagree with you, but
go for it.
When I first read about Teft's death, it was more of a relief for me. Like not that, oh gosh, thank goodness Teft's dead.
Finally,
no,
they killed him.
But the fact that Teft died upon completing his journey. Teft got to exactly where he wanted to be. Teft knew he was loved, he knew he was valued, he knew he had a family that cared about him, and he was where he needed to be in his life in that moment. Elhokar was on his way to being where he needed. But Teft, I feel like, had reached the end of his journey, and when he was killed, I wasn't sad for Teft, I was like, yeah, he got where he wanted to be.
Yeah, but he didn't get to experience any of it. He got there. Finally, mentally, logically, he got there. And then he's gone.
So Teft had the mirror image of Darth Vader.
I also think it's important to note that Moash had a reason to kill Elhokar, right? We can't disagree with that. And I think that's where a lot of people come from the side of they lost me after Teft, because Teft was like, they were both in Bridge 4, and they had that Bridge 4 bond, and then Moash goes and kills Teft, not even because he wants to kill Teft. He wants to get to Kaladin. He's killing Teft to kill Kaladin, essentially. And so it's interesting to, like, even after he kills Teft and he's out of his, like, emptiness, he has a moment of clarity afterwards. And I can never unhear Michael Kramer's voice, the audiobook, for when he says, I killed Teft. Like, it's guttural. Like, it's such good delivery. But he really is like, I killed Teft. Like, Moash has that moment of, like, oh, I might have done an oopsie. And it's interesting because I see where people come from when they're like, they lost me after Teft, because Moash, what are you doing? Like, killing Elhokar was Moash's, like, big thing for 3 books, right? So it makes sense from a Moash perspective, and I still don't love to see it. And because I loved Elhokar so much, that's where he loses me. But it is more justifiable.
Right. And I want to represent a position that I haven't heard talked about yet. There was few people lost him in the first book. Upon rereading the Stormlight Archive, he's not a very nice dude either. He's often sort of the devil on Kaladin's shoulder, and because Kaladin's the spear that won't break, he continues on his journey, but at almost every corner, Moash is trying to pull him down a path of, not racism, but, light eyes, dark eyes sort of racism, and also classism, which we will get into. But there is something to be said for just Moash's personality as not really being great at any point in the book. He's very much chip on his shoulder, and when he starts off kind of aggrandizing the death of his grandparents, making it sound like they were killed like Ned Stark, but they were just kind of left in a basement somewhere, which is also bad. But again, he's... I'm just bringing it, it's not my position, but I'm bringing up that idea of there is something lacking in Moash when you read it from the beginning, a lack of empathy that leads him to behave in a way where he'll use Teft like a tool to get to Kaladin. That's a sociopathic, psychopathic kind of thing to do, where you use people as tools to get your goal. You'll hop up for the Q&A.
I would counterpoint this.
You're so ready.
I mean, like, very clearly, Moash's goal is not to kill Kaladin. He very clearly states multiple times that he believes the only person that can do so is Kaladin himself, which is why he does what he does. So he's not trying to actually off Kaladin. He's trying to get Kaladin to do that by himself.
No, I think he is, though. I think he wants to destroy the hope. I think he wants to break the spear. I think the point is that Kaladin represents a counterpoint to him so soundly that it would also validate his choices. The tough choices that Moash has made, if he defeats Kaladin, I think in his mind, kind of Thrasymachus might is right, he'll believe what he did is right, and it might be an ease on his conscience.
I don't know if it would be an ease on his conscience, but it might be some justification for his conscience.
Well, it's specifically for that reason, I feel like, for me personally, Moash's point of no return isn't until, like, the end of Rhythm of War, beginning of the Wind and Truth. Yeah. Where he has faced all of that and been confronted with the fact that he killed Teft and he's been trying to do terrible things to Kaladin, all of these things, and then specifically chooses to keep going. That's where I lost Moash. Is I felt there was possibility for Moash redemption even post killing Teft. But once he specifically chose, no, I am going to continue to give away my pain.
Well, yeah, you also see like the very notable line, the most important step a man can take is the next one. And Moash keeps taking those steps, but he's going down, not up, is the thing. And so it's just, he keeps doubling down, I think is a big thing to note too.
So I don't know what, that is coming up next.
Okay. I was going to say, we're going to talk now a little bit about his internal perspective and perception.
A question for people to think about is, you know, he keeps giving away his pain. What would happen to him if he took it back?
Yeah.
What would happen to Moash if he took back his pain?
That's what Dalinar did,
I'd
right?
love to see it.
Is there a way? I guess that's what we're here
He's
to talk
got some
about.
stuff in his brain now.
The nature versus nurture. Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what went into shaping Moash and comparing it of what went into shaping Kaladin. Because a big thing of that is nature versus nurture. Is it because who they were born inherently, or is it because of the environment they were grown up on? So what shaped Moash? He was orphaned from a young age, and he grew up with his grandparents. A big thing to note is he mentions how people always kind of feared him throughout his life. It doesn't really expand on why, but it was maybe they just judged him at first looks. It does note about that, that there was always negativity coming in towards him. And we'll get into Kaladin in a second, but he did not have as similar as a thing. He was forced into servitude. We see him as a slave right off the rip. And he's so much passion and desire for revenge, or a better word I would argue is retribution, which I'll get into that in a little bit. So yeah, and I'm just going to go into comparing it to Kaladin. Kaladin, his dad was the surgeon. He at least had a little bit more class than Moash. And a big thing is, I think, he didn't have the best childhood, but also it wasn't, Kaladin, especially pre-Tian and everything like that. I was almost like, I can't spoil it, but I forgot where we are. Kaladin pre-Tian is very he doesn't have as hard as a childhood as it appears that Moash did. And then with the death of his brother Tian, that's a bummer. Betrayal of Amaran, that's another bummer. He has depression for a reason, guys. But he always has this desire to protect. And we literally see Kaladin gets to the point at the Honor Chasm on page 200-ish of The Way of Kings, and what he has is Syl to save him. Moash doesn't have a Syl. Moash didn't have anyone to be there for him. Kaladin, at the very least, had Syl there for him. And every time we see Kaladin struggling, usually, even at the beginning of Rhythm of War, when he's really sad, Adolin comes down. He's like, let's go get drinks. I am going to force you to go out and be there. Because Kaladin has that support system. And yes, he has Syl because of his ideals and because of his values. But Moash didn't have not even, the only person Moash had was Kaladin, right? And Kaladin was the only person that believed in Moash. But Moash was so set on his hatred that he accepted Kaladin's love. And one of my favorite lines of Moash is in Wind and Truth. And it's in Moash's interlude. And I don't have the exact phrasing, and I don't have my copy on Wind and Truth on me, but there is a line in there, and if you reread Moash's interlude, he's talking with Todium, Teravangian Odium, and Teravangian's like, I'm not gonna take away your pain, because with the new Odium, Ray's was taking away his pain. He's like, I'm not gonna do that to you. And they literally, in their conversation, they say the word retribution, which is awesome foreshadowing. However, what I really want to get at is, he says, Teravangian's like, I'm still gonna have you be going against your friends. And Moash says, it's okay, they're still gonna love me anyway. They're still gonna be fighting to protect me. I know this. And what I think is interesting is, before, I would say, with Kaladin, he knew Syl was always going to be there for him, which helped him feel supported and helped him grow. And Moash is aware that his friends will be there for him. And because he has that, he doesn't need to give them attention because they're going to give him attention. He can do what he wants to do. And I think that's I just think that's a really interesting line.
I think looking at the nature versus nurture of Kaladin and Moash, I'm sort of persuaded by your argument, but the thing that gets me is we see Kaladin as a leader as a brigade leader, I forget what they call him, a squad leader, and what he did to save everybody he could even then, before he knew he was getting the assistance of Honor, before he knew he had Syl, he still stood up against terrible odds to try and save people. And I think that he also worked against his support system because his father kept saying, well, you can't save people while hurting people. And Kaladin had to take his own stance independently, develop a complex moral position, and start protecting people on his own without help in that regard, actually against his support system to try and support others. So Moash didn't have support, but he didn't. I feel like it's kind of tough to argue a negative in a way. Like I can't say Moash would have been great in Kaladin's situation if he had the same benefits. You definitely have to look at that. The class status certainly has to be considered, especially given so much of Moash's perspective on the light eyes versus dark eyes. Yeah. His upbringing makes sense, but Kaladin was likewise betrayed in a horrible way. Amaram's betrayal is vicious. It's surprising to me that even Brandon Sanderson wrote that kind of an evil betrayal because it's so hard, it's so wicked. That it's almost hard to compute. And then Kaladin has to work through that. You're gonna need somebody to help pull you out of that. You know, so I definitely think there's a lot of validity to the idea of Moash lacking support, building him into this person that he is now, that chip on his shoulder. But I don't wanna oversell the support Kaladin had because when he was alone, he still protected others, even to his detriment. And I think that that speaks a little bit more to his moral character within that almost can't be designed. I might be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, we'll head down there in a second. One quick thing I want to know, what if Moash was raised in an environment and in a house where people were constantly being saved, right? Kaladin did grow up with that, his father, even though his father's like, you can't protect, I hate you, Liren. I dislike Liren more than Moash, but that's a different panel.
I agree, actually.
But I think, like, Kaladin was raised constantly in that environment of, we're saving people. Moash was raised in an environment of, Elhokar is killing my parents, you know?
Right.
We can head down there for nature versus nurture.
Go for it, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I had a thought and then it ran away. But I do like the fact that, like, just considering the support systems of Moash and Kaladin, there's an element of coasting that we see with Moash, where he was raised in, of course, a less than ideal situation, and he continued to just move forward in that situation. People feared him growing up. People continued to fear him as he grew older. Kaladin, we see make deliberate choices to work and to protect. And it's that element of coasting and just letting things happen to you and moving forward in what is easiest versus making deliberate decisions to work and change that we see in Kaladin that we don't see in Moash. Go ahead, Ben.
I kind of want to take this in a different direction and ask the question of how willing are we to forgive somebody for their actions based on the status that they have in society. We're talking about Kaladin and Moash right now, but Eris opened the conversation talking about Dalinar. And if we think about Moash's timeline, we get to know Moash in book 1, and by the end of book 5, like, how many years have passed? 1, 2, 3 years? Like, it's not a long timeline. When we delve into Dalinar's past, we're talking about decades of repression, decades of campaigning, decades of murder, decades of atrocious acts. And many of us will look at that and say, well, that's okay. He's good now, right? Is Dalinar a good person? Yes or no? Is Moash a good person? Yes or no?
I think, can I just, on that, I think Dalinar is trying to be a good person, and that's relatable. I think that that's where the conversation kind of ends in my mind of the internal effort on a day-to-day basis. I just think he's trying to be a good person. I don't think he is.
But is he trying to be a good person because he wants to change, or is it because the old magics took away his brain and physiologically changed who he was, right?
Well, yeah, on that note, because you're talking about class and like privilege of what privilege comes along with, what makes you a good person, right? Is like, are we more, not even like a societal class structure, but like even if you're looking at privilege, Moash has the privilege of evil God being like, be the devil, right? Essentially, I mean, it's summarizing, but he has literally, yeah, that's good. Yeah, perfect. You have like literally, Moash his privilege is pulling him down, right? Dalinar's privilege, you don't get more privilege than God saying, I'm going to fix you, right? Like, literally, cultivation's like, I'm going to take away your memories, and that's what gets him in the pack. And even after forgetting his memories for so long, right? Even after decades of not knowing that he killed his wife, and then he goes and he starts redeeming himself, and he does good thing after good thing after good thing after good thing, because he had a fresh start. Dalinar had a fresh start that Moash has not had and probably will never get. And what I think is
Bridge 4.
Well, yeah, I get. Well, yeah, okay.
Was Bridge 4 his fresh
but like,
start?
Bridge,
Yes, absolutely.
But like Dalinar forgot everything. You know, well, not everything, but then like I just think there's so much privilege that comes around with Dalinar's, and then even when he gets all his memories back and it comes to his point of redemption, he almost does it. Like he's right there, and he thankfully chooses to take the next step. But it's, I don't know.
So I love that idea, but I do think that, again, Dalinar is a child of Odium as well. The thrill, the passions, that is Odium speaking to him through him, and he has warring gods, actually. I think Dalinar's soul is a battleground for these gods, and Dalinar continually chooses the side of the good. But just briefly, I think we should talk about this because of the reaction. Do you guys think Bridge 4 was Moash's point? That was his chance to turn things around, I think. I see thumbs down. This is interesting. So who thinks it was his turn? We'll raise hands. Who thinks that Moash's chance to begin on the right path was Bridge 4 with Kaladin? Ooh. It's pretty good. And now who thinks that's completely wrong and we're nuts? Less, okay. But no, I think there's a significant number of people who feel that way. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you think, Steve, if you want to start, what do you think about Bridge 4 as Moash's chance to get the opportunity that Dalinar had that we were just talking about?
I mean, when we examine Moash's entire existence within Bridge 4, he was the first one to get up and start running the bridge with Kaladin. Like,
Was
Moash
he really?
was
he really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, I thought it was Rock. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it was not Rock. No, Moash was the first one to get up and start running the bridge.
Okay.
Unless I'm wrong. No, he was the... Someone correct me.
We'll
Do what I
figure it
dare
out.
you.
We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. We'll fact check. I'll fact check.
Moash was there. And... but... We see Moash, like, he was one of the most enthusiastic in developing Bridge 4 as a, like, sort of paramilitary unit training in the chasms. Like, Moash was striving for leadership and I would argue to say self-improvement while he was in Bridge 4. It was when he got the opportunity to finally get the thing that he was hoping for his entire life. That's when he really took that sharp turn and left the support of Bridge 4 to go after what he had always wanted, with the revenge of killing Elokar.
I think that's, somebody called this out and I'm now remembering this. Moash was the last one, the last holdout, the last person to join in the groups, but he was the fastest learner down in the chasms when it came to actually training with Kaladin.
Hurting people?
And
yeah.
he specifically did that because he wanted to start on this pathway for revenge. He calls this out specifically saying the reason why I practiced with you so hard was because I saw it as my last chance to finally do something to seek the revenge that I'd been trying to get my whole life. I don't think that we can equate in any sense of the word Bridge 4 as Moash's opportunity for a fresh start with Dalinar's opportunity for a fresh start with the old magics and with cultivation. Not even close. I don't even think that's relatable in any way.
So one interesting point about Moash as well with him, I remember him specifically making fun of Kaladin, saying, you're not going to get these people to follow Bridge Boy. Like he was pretty against Kaladin to begin with, which is why when he turned to support Kaladin, has anybody here watched Dragon Ball Z at all? A little bit? Remember Majin Vegeta and his speech to Goku about why he accepted Majin's power was to defeat Goku? He took on this evil thing just for an evil purpose, but not to be a slave to it. I think that's Moash, the same thing. He used this opportunity to not change, but to further deepen into his base personality, which is one of chip on the shoulder, revenge, that kind of thing. Now, does that necessarily make someone bad? I don't think so, but I think that was his predisposition, and that's a tough thing to overcome. About the old magics, please, go ahead.
No, I just like building off of what you're saying, I think we need to examine the reasoning behind why Moash is doing what he's doing, and it's because of an injustice. It's not a perceived injustice. It's not an underplayed injustice. It's because of the societal systems that were in place. His grandparents died. His parental figures, they were not necessarily executed with a guillotine, but they were put to death by a system that essentially left them forgotten. That is an injustice that he's trying to fix in the only way that he can. There's, like, if we think about this from a perspective of class. Dark Eyes, they have no political power in this system. The highest political power, like Kaladin becoming a captain in the military, is like the highest rank that somebody has had in this society as a Dark Eyes pretty much ever. So how can somebody like Moash make a difference? And that is exactly what he is pursuing. How can he make a difference? And does he deserve to be able to make a difference for the wrongs that he was given? Now, everything that he does is horrible. But the reasoning and the logic behind it is all just and sound. He deserves maybe not retribution, but he deserves justice. But nobody is going to give him justice. So who is left to pursue that, especially in a world where justice has a timeline?
I think that it's interesting when you mention that because of Kaladin taking the opposite approach, it's not just Kaladin as the Dark Eyes who gets the privilege. All of Bridge 4 goes with him as the anointed bodyguards of the crown, where when you're looking at Moash, he believed it couldn't be fixed because his ideals didn't lead him there. And in a book about higher ideals, obviously Kaladin aligns with honor and the ideal of you can always strive to be better, right? The city on the hill, we may never get there, but it's important to reach high. Because if you miss, you're still pretty high up. But if you view the world as this thing that is just designed to tear you down, which could be very valid in his perspective, your only option is, well, let me tear everything down. Let me not try and fix, let me destroy. And that's why he's such a good odium figure, right? As compared to honor.
Well, let's bring up a counterpoint too. Who here is from the United States? Who here believes that taxation without representation is a bad thing?
I'm going to abstain. I still have a job.
Who here believes that we live in a country founded on the principles of equal rights, taxation with representation, having a representative government? You don't.
Well, founded on the ideals.
Are we founded on those ideals?
It'd be the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, and it would also be the City on the Hill speech.
Was it right for them to do what they did in overthrowing the government that controlled them at the time? Would it be right for Moash to lead a rebellion against his government at the time?
You should be a lawyer. That was great. That was tight.
That was good.
That was
you
really
lost
nice.
me for a little bit, and then you tied it right back in. I like that.
That was good.
So, would it be?
I'm on his side now. I'm on that side now. That was good.
TJ, no.
I think this is just a lot more complex than we want to. It's way more complex than we have time to even delve into right now.
I think
but it's a lot more complex than just simply Moash is a bad person, Moash is a good person, Moash did the wrong thing, Moash did the right thing. Yeah. There are levels of complexity to this that we're not going to explore today.
Well, that's a great point, though. That does oh, please, Dylan, go ahead.
No, I just had a good segue to the next thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it segues nicely, yeah.
To tie into the question we were answering a while ago of was Bridge 4 Moash the starting point, I would argue, heck no. Bridge 4, him going there was him showing up and being constantly reminded of the system that he's being oppressed by. Like, he's constantly being engraved that in his skull. Now, granted, he shows no motivation. He shows so much talent, but no motivation to do the right thing with that talent, like how he was fast in the chasms. And so it's really, he doesn't seize the opportunities he has, and I think that is where the beginning of his downfall and his contrast with Kaladin starts. And I think that's where the beginning of his downfall starts in the Way of Kings, and he just keeps going down to the rock bottom. Yeah. And that segues us into...
I would say this is something that you kind of saw me on that opening video hint at. But I do think Moash is kind of at his rock bottom, and I do think that my perspective right off the bat is I do believe he's on a redemption arc. I think Brandon's going to force it down on us whether we like it or not, just because that's kind of where, I mean, he's blinded. I believe it's Paul and Saul, where he was blinded in the Saints. It kind of mirrors this idea where he's had everything taken from him now. I don't know how much lower he can go. And again, that'd be amazing writing if you could show me another level below where Moash already is. But I think inevitably, unless he dies in book 6, there's maybe 2.5 million more words for his character to develop. And where else do you go but up at this point? But that's sort of my opening salvo for this idea, this final point before the last question is, do we think that there is a foreshadowing of Moash's redemption? And if so, what is your perspective on, one, should he be redeemed? 2, is it even possible if he tries? What do you think? Steve, would you like to go first?
Yeah, really hard question. Steve, go.
Giant question, here you go. I mean, I can go first if you'd like.
As an imperfect human, I would, for my own self-worth issues. I genuinely want redemption to be a possibility. I'm not saying that Moash is going to accept that possibility, because again, the way his character has been developing, I don't think Moash will take redemption at this point. But redemption being an option is, it reflects the hope that I want to have in the human condition. I feel like we make mistakes and we hurt people, but we can always do better, we can always change, even if it is Darth Vader 30 seconds before death. There can be development and a return to goodness that is possible, that is an option for all of us. So fundamentally, I think Moash, while he may not take that chance, should be offered that chance.
I think...
Thank you, one person.
I think, from my perspective, like, I despise who Moash has become. And he, like I've been trying to get across, he has his ideals are founded originally in seeking rights for wrongs that have been done. And had he had the right mentors along the way, things could have turned out a lot different for Moash. I despise Moash because when he killed Teft, he became irredeemable in my eyes. But in my eyes, that's because I loved Teft. The same way that Kaladin has no idea who Evie is and is willing to forgive Dalinar for murdering his wife. That has no sway on how he feels about Dalinar because he has no idea who that person was and has no emotional connection to them. And so outside of this room, outside of the Cosmere, Moash is fictional, but outside of this room, outside of the Cosmere, people who don't know Moash, after that point where he chooses to take back his own pain, after the point where he chooses to make redemption for the past wrongs, in their eyes, he absolutely can seek redemption and achieve that redemption. But for me, I will never be able to forgive that one moment. And I think a lot of us in here feel the exact same way about that one moment where he lost us forever.
I think that's a hugely important point, because what you highlighted there, while also highlighting the complexity of this morally gray situation, is the perspective of the person judging whether they're good or bad. And that's super important. I love the idea of the changed perspective to be able to get this conclusion. And as readers of the Cosmere, like you said, we know too much about him. So if we come in blind and he's the guy who saves us on a battlefield or something, as we all find ourselves on, then we might go, wow, this guy's pretty good. And not knowing the past is important to that. For me, I do think he's redeemable. I kind of echo what Steve said. I like to believe that for all people, there's a chance to change a path, to take the step in the right direction. The most important step is the first one: life before death, journey before destination, strength before weakness. Those ideals, I think, are why the Cosmere, well, Stormlight specifically, resonates so much with all of us. That's why we're here talking about fake characters with such passion and vigor. And I do think that there's a chance for Moash to turn it around. But with that scales of justice comparison, which I'm not even personally sold as the right way to appraise somebody's goodness or badness, but on that, because it's easy to understand and discuss, he's got to do some really, really good stuff before. And now Brandon's just dropped the bomb of actually, the non-singers, the Rosharans, are actually invaders and tyrannical, and they took over the land from the people who originally had it. Now we have the even deeper complexity of, is Dalinar fighting for, quote, the good? Have the singers been wronged? Man, we have a lot of stuff to contend with at the end of this full cycle after 10 books are out, and it's not going to be a simple answer. I think, like Ben says, it's very complex, very gray, but I want to see Moash at least try to be good. Just like Dalinar's trying. Yeah, that's what I want to see.
I think, as a wise man once said, no, screw that. I'm kidding. I think the thing with Moash is, imagine if we got this short, like this 3-book arc of this really awesome dude in a kingdom of Alethkar, whatever, and then all of a sudden he's carelessly slaughtered by the Blackthorn, right? And we got to know this character really well. Dalinar killed so many people. A lot of people in the Cosmere, even the ones we like, have killed people. Kelsier, sorry. Yeah. But all I'm trying to say is, we have the reason we don't like Moash is what Ben was saying is there's one moment where he killed one character that we really liked. From that moment, we're like, no. For me, it's Elhokar. For a lot of you, it's Teft. Some of you might really like whoever he kills in Wind and Truth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, he does something. I don't know. I was already off the deep end at that point with Moash. But the point being is, we don't have we have the privilege of loving the characters that Moash kills. And that's why he's irredeemable to us. But so many people probably loved the characters that Dalinar killed, right? So many, just because a life is one we know doesn't make it more valuable. And I think because of that, if Dalinar, we have the privilege of seeing Moash's wrongdoings on page in real time. Dalinar's was in flashbacks, and we had so many years between those flashbacks. You know what I'm saying? So I really think it boils down to, yes, I think if anyone can be redeemed, then anyone can be redeemed, and Moash is not an exception to that. Do I want to see him be redeemed? No. But I think he can be, because Elhokar's just a person. If we're going, that counterpointed everything I just said. But my point being is, a life is a life. Because we know that life, it does not make that more valuable. And so if Dalinar can be redeemed, so can Moash. Now, what I'd love to see happen is he keeps getting opportunities to be redeemed, and he says no, and then there's someone gives him a really big monologue of every time he could have been redeemed, and then his head's cut off. That'd be cool.
Plot relevant decapitation is always fun.
I mean, if you want to see him go through pain, watch his redemption arc. Redemption is not pretty. Redemption is not.
Dalinar's constantly.
Or if he gets killed like Elhokar right before the redemption arc.
He doesn't need to get. He doesn't need to be killed.
That's crazy.
That's my theory.
Oh my God. All right. So now looking at our time here, we want to have a Q&A. We want to have more direct engagement with you guys. So let's first, go ahead and start lining up for the Q&A if you have a question.
Go ahead. You've been ready for a half hour.
Wait, we're not ready yet.
We're not ready yet.
We have one last survey.
One last survey of the group at large. But by the way, this shows that this was an awesome idea. Talking about Moash like this, the excitement.
I'm going to get a picture of that.
I would say that's awesome.
Easy to talk about.
So now, just by show of hands, who believes Moash can be redeemed?
Not should.
Not should. Right.
Okay. Who thinks
exactly.
Moash should be redeemed?
Much less hands.
Okay,
different question. Yeah.
Okay. Now
can I add a third one on there?
Go ahead, man.
Who thinks Moash did nothing wrong? Let's go, baby. Sorry for cursing. Thank you.
That was the question?
Oh, am I allowed to go now?
That was great.
Great. Okay, cool. Okay. I'm sorry because I'm not going to start with a question because I do think there's another point on the map that wasn't really represented in the panel, which is no disrespect to you all. I think you've all done a great job, and I really loved hearing all of your points about it.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
Yeah. And I appreciate you telling me to calm down during the panel as well. Because I feel proud of the emotion that I
the passion,
incited.
if you will.
Yeah. So I'm glad I incited that within you, and you told me to calm down. We've talked about redemption a lot and characters being irredeemable, right? And this idea that to you all, actions of a person can cause them to be irredeemable. And would you, I truly mean this as a question, not as a trap, but just in the defining terms, which I loved. You are clearly a very great lawyer. I mean that sincerely. Especially because you did a wonderful magic trick, and I mean this as a compliment, of presenting yourself as defining neutral terms and then totally ignoring a perspective throughout the whole panel.
Which was?
That Moash did nothing wrong. That you can't be redeemed if you've not sinned in the first place. Yeah, I agree. You all think that, and I don't. So this idea of redemption, right? And people being irredeemable. And then there was a lot of cheering throughout too.
I don't want to put you on a clock, but we have a lot of
We do
people.
have a lot of questions.
I know.
Sorry.
It's okay. This is the most important part of the con. I will pass it along. I promise. I will hustle for me, especially after the debate. And then there was cheering for the murder of this character as well throughout, right? Because you all think that he's irredeemable. But there are lives that are represented here that were don't get to speak for themselves because they were destroyed. His grandparents, it was not a passive murder as it was described. There was a lot of description of his character and the assuming of his like coasting, someone calls surviving. So my question to you all is if you feel that it is possible that your reading of this character is based on the comfort of not having to experience this pain, which again, we're talking about fictional characters, and then allowing yourself to have that side, and then be sure in the absolute idea that this person is bad, and then continue to read that character's actions with that truth in mind.
Totally, yeah. Actually, that's a really good question. I think.
Thank you.
Let's do fast answers.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think,
Thank you, man.
We don't get to read Moash. We don't have Moash flashbacks, so we don't have the context of seeing, like, we don't see how he's feeling. And so I do think the amount of page time we have does affect that.
Speaks for me.
I wasn't telling you to calm down. I was saying we're going to get to you.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
All right, so just one quick clarification because Dalinar does remember the rift in Rathalas. He just doesn't remember that he killed his wife there. So Dalinar is coming from the place of redemption. Of he remembers he did these bad things, he is still choosing to move forward and try to atone for those actions. Yeah. But now I lost my question. So it was Moash and Dalinar also had a very similar moment of Dalinar explicitly says, you cannot have my pain to Odium, whereas Moash is basically throwing it at Odium saying, take it. And so do you think that Moash will have a moment similar to that of taking back his pain and acknowledging it as his pain as opposed to what he does in Winded Truth, which is essentially accepting that he has pain, not that it is his pain for causing these bad actions?
I like this as a mirror and as a potential foreshadowing for what's to come, specifically because we see Dalinar and the things that he went through in order to get rid of that pain to begin with, which was seeking out the old magic, visiting cultivation, and getting his memories removed, which essentially is a form of taking away the pain, right? He had the pain taken away, but when he remembered it, when it finally came back to him, he was willing to finally accept it and keep it for himself. And so, will we see that same thing happen with Moash? I think that is an incredibly interesting question, and I would love to see what happens to him if he decides to take back that pain.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next. We're going to do one response, so if you want to target it at one person, feel free, or whoever feels passionate.
Oh, good catch.
Nice.
Well done.
Please go ahead.
Kick the stand back.
We have 15 minutes. They're going to kick us off, actually, 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of comparison with Moash and Kaladin and Dalinar, but I'm shocked no one has brought up Yesna. And I am curious what your thoughts are on that, because I think she's on a redemption arc herself. And they have very similar moral philosophies, she and Moash do.
I haven't chewed down on that one enough yet.
I think, there absolutely are some similarities between Yasna and Moash. I mean, we see Yasna's moral philosophy in action in Carbrand. And if we're talking about murdering people, well, Yasna kills 3, I wouldn't say innocent, but they hadn't committed a crime yet, people.
Or had they?
Well, and that's the thing, like we lack that perspective, right? So I would say we just don't know enough about Yasna's backstory, specifically like with her mysterious childhood illness. Like, I don't think we have enough context to give a really good comparison between the two characters, but there definitely is similarity there.
Yeah, I thought Zeph was going to come up as well, but we didn't have time for Zeph, but great question. Hi.
A point that I don't think that was made is I feel like the thesis of the series in some ways, I mean, there's several like really major themes that are mentioned, is like how far, especially with Dalinar, how far down the dark path can a character go and still be redeemed? And then with regards to Moash's, and like, I don't necessarily care whether or not he's redeemed or not. I just want the series to engage with it in as interesting a way as it deals with Dalinar's. as far as some of Moash's actions, sort of like in Words of Radiance, I think it's also important to mention that like he was never actually a slave. Like he basically showed up at the Shattered Plains to be a soldier, and then he's shoved into the bridge crews because they needed bridgemen more than they needed soldiers. And so I think that plays into like the ways that he has been let down by the system his entire life. There's essentially no legal recourse for Dark Eyes to be protected in any capacity. And I think that when he meets Graves, Graves sets himself up as someone who believes in equality between the Light Eyes and Dark Eyes. He's married to a Light Eyes. He has a one-eyed child. And as far as in Words of Radiance, like Elokar still absolutely sucks. And just when you think of how like traumatizing it would be for Moash to like after the duel, when Kaladin is thrown in prison for no reason whatsoever, like Moash's grandparents were, and basically left in prison to rot. And like Moash's grandparents didn't have two members of the royal family basically advocating for him. That's the only reason that Kaladin is alive now. I think that Moash sees replacing Elokar with Dalinar as being a net societal good. So when we talk about Moash being like, is he doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, how do you define what the right thing is?
Well, Dalinar agrees with him at some point, because Dalinar even deals with that. With, is it better for me just to usurp the crown? Is it better for me to take over? So we have the same character thinking a very similar thing. Interesting point.
So I guess all that said, my question is, why do you think the internet hates Moash and loves Luigi Mangione?
My mouth is shut.
I was like, I'm not going to say a thing there. We can all abstain. Great question.
What an interesting question.
That is a great question.
Period.
Hi, yeah. Moash is like top 5. I go through what my favorite character is all the time. I love Adolin, I love Renarin. Moash is top 5 for me of my favorite characters in the series. Both in someone who I love to see where his character arc is going to go, and just, I also just like him as a character. I don't hate him. I hated him for like a couple of days after I finished Rhythm of War, but I got over it.
What do you know? What got you over it? Is there a specific thing that you recall?
Because I find his character so fascinating. Like, to me, he's another comparison is similar to Shallan in a way where he often acts on instinct rather than thinking through his actions. Like, Shallan represses all of her stuff all the time. That's kind of the whole point of her character arc, and I don't think Moash really thinks through a lot of what he does. He goes based off of instinct and emotion until the emotion starts being siphoned away by odium. I had a question. I just started rambling instead.
It's a good ramble, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, my thoughts are, let me form them back together.
Well, if I may, we're going to stick around and talk with people afterward as well.
If you want to have
let's try and get as many people as we can through, if that's all right.
I was gonna say, if you have like a question, if you just want to like talk about Moash, I'd love to do that. We can meet after the panel. Otherwise, let's keep it to questions.
I know. I can't remember my question. I'll let the next person go.
Cool points, though. Thank you.
So just had a quick question. After reading through specifically the Skybreaker section of the Cosmere RPG, it goes into a lot of, like, because we're all, like, how Nail has his own sect of Highspren that follow him specifically, and that there are other Highspren that may allow you to follow a, quote, criminal organization is how it's worded in the book. Is there a path in books 6 through 10 where a rogue Highspren finds Moash and goes down a path of justice, but his justice?
Yes. I love that. Absolutely.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
That's the kind of thing I see Brandon doing. Like you were saying, you want it to be interesting at the very least. That sounds deeply interesting.
In that Moash interlude I was talking about, he talks about, I started to get retribution for my enemies. And I think a rogue high spread could go on that. Amazing question, amazing theory. That's awesome.
I love, just in relation to that, specifically examining the, when we take the Radiant Ideals and go too far with them, seeing where that goes is fascinating. So yeah, I would love that.
Hi, my question is kind of, do you guys think Moash might have narcissistic personality disorder? And that's further backed by him trying to validate his own perspective to relieve his own guilt for his actions by trying to break Kaladin as this moral opposite character to bring him over to his side to prove to himself that
That's
he's
exactly
correct.
what I said. Yes. Yeah, I think so.
1,000,000% yes. Especially with that, I know these people are going to love me, so I'm going to do what I want to do from that interlude of Wind and Truth. I want to reread that with that context now. That's amazing. Yes.
Awesome cosplay.
Thank you so much. I had to represent Elle, the #1 Moash fan, if you define that as not really hating him that much. So first of all, thank you for the wonderful panel. That was so much fun. Second of all, I had a bit of a Doyleist question, which is when you compare Moash to very similar characters, such as previously mentioned Yasna, and especially Kelsier, to whom I think he has a lot of similarities, Moash has the specific position of being made to look ridiculous by the narrative constantly. He has an edgy emo version of the Bridge 4 coat. He's obsessed with manual labor for some reason.
Yes.
He shows up in Kaladin's dreams to suicide bait him, an objectively ridiculous thing to do in a fantasy novel. All sorts of things. And I was wondering, from a writing perspective, given that no one likes him, his character arc does not go very many places in the first arc, but he gets a lot of time, and he's made to look really stupid. Why is he there from a writing perspective? What is Moash accomplishing as a tool, narratively and thematically, in the first arc?
Ben, do you want to take that, given your background?
This is a really interesting question. Because when we think about characters, we think about two different types of characters, antagonists and protagonists. And we've talked about a little bit how each of us contains a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, and there's a lot of gray area in between there. Thematically and from a character perspective, Moash is not an antagonist. Moash is not a protagonist. He's a minor character that forces our main characters to make decisions, and that is an excellent narrative tool to put thoughts in our characters' minds the way we want them to be. Like, as writers, if you're writing a story and you have a thought that you want your character to start thinking, but you have no idea how to get it into that character's brain, you put it in another character with those kinds of thoughts, and you feed those thoughts to your character through those other characters. Moash fills a lot of those roles in this story, specifically when it relates to giving Kaladin opportunities to pursue darker thoughts than he would originally have without Moash on his shoulder. And so we've got, we can have an entire panel like on that specific question. But yeah, I think just from a narrative perspective, Moash gives us the opportunity to look at the opposite of what Kaladin becomes and see two dichotomies especially from like, this is such a good question.
Thank you.
Gold star.
From two different areas of like, how do we approach perceived and actual injustices in the world? Do we try to make changes within the system that we currently have, or do we try to just revamp our system, or do we throw that system out the window and try to establish a new one? And Kaladin works through the pathway of let's work within our current system and change things as we meet them, and Moash is there to say let's burn it all to the ground and start over. Those are two different dichotomies, and we get them we wouldn't have that in this story without Moash, and we see a lot of it through Kaladin being our main character. Anyway, I could keep going, but essentially he performs a number of very important narrative devices and mechanisms in the story as pertaining to the opposition of Kaladin's character and his arc. So there you go.
Fascinating analysis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
5 minutes. Go ahead. We have a little bit more than I thought. That's great. Hi.
Hello. First of all, I just want to congratulate you guys because this panel has moved my opinion on Moash. So it's moved my opinion.
Which way?
So
that's the real question.
I will say it really struck a chord with me when you guys said if anyone can have a redemption arc, then anyone can have a redemption arc. I don't know if I want to see it, but I do think that principle should be held to for a lot of the reasons you guys talked about. But I do want to, I kind of want to throw a thought at you and then hear you respond. So it won't necessarily be phrased as a question, but hopefully it'll be a seed. We talked about the moments when Moash lost people in the audience, and we focused on these moments of action, of murdering a specific character. But something that was really important to me that I didn't hear it talked about much is that when we move from the murder of Elhokar to the murder of Teft, kind of a cross rhythm of war, we see Moash go from somebody who's moving towards a goal to a person who's reacting to other people. He becomes very reactive. It's not about, let me restructure a Lethi society. It's, I'm hurt and I need to prove a point to Kaladin. I need to react to this. I need to react to that. And so I'm curious to just hear you guys talk about if there are any Moash moments that stand out to you kind of within that framework, or how that position of kind of being very instinctual, very reactive, might play into future developments of the character, maybe redeemed, maybe not.
I like that. I think that it kind of addresses what Ben was talking about as well, but I think it's the reactionary moments of him make him feel a little bit more like he views himself so much as a victim and so much of woe is me, so many wrong things have been done to me, justified or not. Some of us feel that way, some of us don't. And we look at Kaladin, who doesn't blame the scenario. He just says, I need to do more. I need to do better. And where has that led? He saved countless lives emotionally and physically. He's led to systemic change within a society. And because he believed people could be better, just like Spirit and Elantris, just because you have someone to believe you can do better, others will follow. You will be that open door for those who might be passive. So for me, my perspective is, you can't solve a situation by being reactive. You just can't. You need to take a stance and move forward, which is why, for me, I've never empathized with Moash. You captured it perfectly. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, perfect. Good. Yes, yes. Great.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Counselor?
Awesome cosplay.
So, my question comes from the idea that when I approached the Way of Kings, I didn't start there. I started with Mistborn, and Mistborn kind of seemed like it didn't have a lot of gray. Like it had, the Final Empire, it's really hard to kind of defend like what they're doing or why. In the Way of Kings, it kind of seemed like the more you learned about the story, the more gray it got. Mm-hmm. The more it was defining good guys became really, really complicated. So when I found out that Moash was such a hated character, I was kind of surprised because like to me, he was always kind of this character that just ended up on the other side of a weird gray mess. And the more you learned about the story, the more it kind of seemed to me that like, I don't really know that this side was necessarily invalid. Like, for example, we talk about him ending up with Graves and that, it's wrong for him to break his oath to Kaladin, but Kaladin kind of really broke his oath to him. And, that's the conflict that we had. Kaladin's part of this bigger thing that he's just starting to learn about through Syl, but Moash is part of a bigger thing too through Graves. And at the end of the day, the diagram is the reason that Odium's defeated. Mm-hmm. And like, was it really wrong for someone to choose the diagram? Second question would be, can you envision a situation in the conflict with Teft where someone doesn't end up dead at the end of that encounter? And is it somehow more valid simply because people don't like Moash for the person to be, hated because he survived? Because I don't see a scenario where Teft doesn't kill him if the opportunity arises. And then finally, why is choosing the singers wrong? Like if everything that we know by the end of the series, like we said, spoilers here, it kind of seems like choosing the singers is just a valid choice.
That's what I said. It's going to be a very tough thing to write out of.
Yeah.
Anybody with immediate thoughts on that?
Teft had to die. As much as like I love Teft, it's like you don't. Kaladin does not have that weight hit unless Teft dies, Adolin dies, or like Liren dies. But then we don't care as the audience. We cheer. So like sorry, I just really don't like Liren. My point being is I think Moash, for the result that he wanted, which was a bad result that he wanted to get, he did need to kill Teft in that situation.
But did Teft need to kill him? Like, if in other words, like, can you see a situation where Teft wins that fight but doesn't kill Moash?
That would be a difficult thing to write. Like, my opinion of that, I don't think, just given their two opposing goals, I don't think one of them wouldn't have come out dead. Yeah, narratively, that would be a complex thing to accomplish. That's kind of like saying who would win in a fight between a Radiant and a Mistborn is whoever the story needs to have win. Who would, like, if the story would be served by Moash and Teft both coming out of that alive, but somehow fundamentally changed, that could be accomplished, but that would have to be done very specifically.
Oh, I don't disagree. I think one of them's going to die. I just think it's weird that people instinctively choose Teft dying as this is an evil act.
I think it's perception, right? I think it's what we talked about. It's the perception of us as sort of Western audiences reading this book and whatever. I think there's something there with our own internal biases that are very hard to catalog and put into form that leads us to that conclusion. And I think it just speaks to you being very open-minded, that you're looking at this as a gray. Again, you're a lawyer too. We met in the Starbucks line. But I think I think that's part of it as well, is that you're good at seeing the gray right off the bat, as opposed to choosing a good or bad side in a very easy dichotomy. Is this our time? Are we done? All right. We're going to stick around for anybody who wants to ask questions. Thank you all for being here. This was a ton of fun.
Great panel.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moral of the story, screw Liren. I don't know. Thank you.